everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Top 10 Trends in Institutional Securities and Investments 2020, Entering the Tumultuous 20s, presented by IT Group's Institutional Securities and Investments practice, which is led by Research Director Virginia O'Shea. I'm Lori Spenley, and I'll be one of your IT Group hosts for today's webinar. We'll be starting shortly, but first let me just take care of a few housekeeping items. The webinar will be recorded today, and a link to view the webinar recording on demand will be available to all current IT Group clients of our Institutional Securities and Investments practice. We'll be taking questions at the end of the webinar, so please feel free to submit your questions using the questions feature located in the GoToWebinar toolbar to the right of your screen. It's now my pleasure to introduce today's speakers. Our main host and first presenter is Virginia O'Shea. She's our Research Director for IT Group's Institutional Securities and Investments practice, where she covers data management, collateral management, legal entity onboarding, and post-trade technology. She brings to IT Group more than 13 years of experience in tracking financial technology developments in the capital market sector, with a particular focus on regulatory developments and standards. Joining Virginia, we have an expert lineup of senior analysts, including Audrey Blader, Yui Milan, and Matt Simon. We have analysts Spencer Midland and Paul Synthonot, and research associate Christian Benson. So without further ado, I'll turn the mic over now to Virginia. Thank you again for joining us, and enjoy today's webinar.
Thanks very much, Laurie, and welcome to the webinar, everyone. In terms of what we're going to cover today, every year we cover our top 10 trends for the year in terms of fintech, operational trends, market structure trends. So given that we're finally at 2020, we're looking back and looking forward in terms of looking back in the 1920s. It began with a boom of economic prosperity. Wall Street was booming. But as we enter the 2020s, the picture is somewhat less rosy on a global basis. We think about the portents for a global economic slowdown that are ever present out there. Large investment banks and the sell side overall are continuing to cut back staff and retrenching. Asset managers are facing the prospect of ever decreasing revenues and the race to the bottom when it comes to fees. A lot of movements in recent weeks on that topic as well. And if we think about politics, obviously I'm based in London, as many of you know. There are some similarities here to the 1920s with the rise of populism. At the end of this month, we'll see Brexit coming into force finally after a lot of slowdowns. So that will be an interesting time for us in terms of European market structure changes and how the capital markets landscape will be impacted by these things. So when we think about the negative factors and how to survive in this tough climate, buy-side and sell-side firms really need to double down on their investments, and there has to be an aspect of digital transformation. This essentially means that firms need to get serious about what they're doing. They need to stop the PR exercises that seem to be going on, get out of Pilotville, and address all of the underlying problems that are maybe impeding their efficiency, and finally deliver on the visions that they've been talking about for many months and years in some circumstances. Obviously, technically about for so long really comes to firms' woes. If you think about it, digital transformation really hinges on some of the rather mundane aspects of operational governance, and really data management underlies a lot of it. The plumbing that I've been writing about for so long really comes to the fore in this instance. So with